Hey yo, everyone, Andrew here, bringing you another video review, and today we're going to be doing Nightwing, Rough Justice. A little too rough there, huh? Just a little? Okay, sorry. Anyway, take a look at this comic cover right here. Now, Rough Justice is the second volume in the ongoing Nightwing comic series. And more than just being a second volume in the series, or even a sequel to the first volume, this is a continuation to A Night in Bloodhaven. A lot of the aspects that were introduced in A Night in Bloodhaven, the first volume, are expanded on more so in this volume. So it's not so much a standalone story or a sequel, but rather a continuation of the Night in Bloodhaven story itself. Now, like I said, a lot of elements in A Night in Bloodhaven get expanded on in this story, but more so than anything are two elements, and that would be the relationship between Batman, Bruce Wayne, and Dick Grayson, Nightwing. And also, the second element being Blockbuster, and him being the crime overlord of Bloodhaven. Now, the story starts off with Nightwing going around and actually getting attacked by the Scarecrow and getting into this big freaking head trip. Now, in this head trip, we get to see a lot of the things that are bothering Nightwing at the time. And it's kind of interesting to see how things play out. Now, see, Nightwing in this head trip is living a normal life. He's married to Donna Troy, which is kind of interesting, who is cheating on him with Roy Harper, which again is kind of interesting. See, if anything, a love interest in a hallucinogenic state, I would think it would be something like Barbara Gordon, or maybe even like Starfire or Huntress. But Donna Troy is an interesting pick. Maybe it's because there's more history with Robin Nightwing and Donna Troy than Robin Nightwing with anyone else. But whatever, you can piece it together the way you want. You can theorize however you want. Bruce Wayne is his neighbor, and it's kind of interesting because you also see Jason Todd show up in this, and Jason Todd plays a big element in this hallucinogenic state, in this nightmare syndrome that Nightwing is in. Which makes me come to figure, Jason Todd is kind of Batman's burden. Does Nightwing himself feel bad for what happened to Jason Todd? Does Nightwing himself feel as though if he was there as a brother figure, things wouldn't have happened? Who knows? Again, this is just theorizing. But Nightwing goes into this hallucinogenic state, shit happens, and eventually he's able to get out of it, and he thanks Scarecrow with his fist. He shows Scarecrow how happy he was with his fist. That's only the first chapter or two, so it really doesn't take up too much of the story. Now, the majority of the story is really relationship between Batman and Dick Grayson. Now, ever since the 80s, Dick Grayson, being Robin, and Batman have had kind of a tension between each other for multiple different reasons. This is what prompted Dick Grayson to join the Teen Titans and adopt the persona of Nightwing. Now, for me personally, I felt Prodigal, the sequel to the Nightfall, was the kind of rectifying of Nightwing and Batman, and them kind of getting back on good terms with each other. I might be a little bit wrong at this. Although Batman, I feel as though, feels better about their relationship, Nightwing still has a little bit resentment towards Batman. And it's really shown in this quite a bit, because he's trying to prove to Batman how much he is capable in this city alone. And eventually, towards the end, Nightwing proves to Batman that, hey, I can do this on my own. And Batman says, I'm very proud of you. You can handle yourself here. So that kind of rectifies Batman and Nightwing's relationship. It at least gets it on a positive note. Again, like I said, I thought Prodigal was really where things were rectified, but I guess that's where the healing process started. Because Nightwing still has resentment towards Batman for choosing Jean-Paul Valley, Azrael, as his replacement during Nightfall. But whatever, that's a different talk for a different time. And then Blockbuster. Now see, Blockbuster is the big crime overlord for Bloodhaven. Now I was a little bit hesitant about Blockbuster being the crime overlord. Although he's starting to grow on me a bit. Now I commented to my friend before ever reading the Nightwing series, and he read it before me, or at least most of the issues, that I said that I wasn't going to like Blockbuster at all. He seems like a dull character, or at least a character that wouldn't really interest me as much. However, he is growing on me quite a bit. What I like about Blockbuster is he isn't just another Batman villain thrown at Nightwing, and Nightwing needs to fight this Batman villain. Now, before you comment anything, yes, I know Blockbuster was originally introduced in the Batman comics, and he was a villain as Batman. But compared to the likes of Two-Face, Joker, or Scarecrow, he's not one of those big villains. So he's a minor enough villain that he can be thrown in with Nightwing, and he can be molded to the Nightwing comics very well. I mean, if you threw Two-Face into the Nightwing comics, it would feel kind of awkward and forced. But with Blockbuster, he's such a minor character that it feels a little bit more natural. So, Blockbuster is a character that I'm starting to warm up to, but not just that, but he's also proven that he really does have this tight grip over Bloodhaven. And Nightwing has to go toe-to-toe with Blockbuster and kind of play things dirty. The fight scene between them is absolutely cool and great, and it shows you how unique of a fighter Nightwing is and how much he can improvise under certain circumstances. That last story deals with Man-Bat and with Deathstroke's Terminator. Very short story, doesn't really give you too much resolve, gives you a little, but not too much. Deathstroke looked like a badass in it, but was really more of like a little fun add-on story. So, with that said, on to the good, the bad, and whether or not you should get it. Let's start off things with the good. Well, first of all, this expands on Night of Bloodhaven. It does a very good job at that. It keeps the dark, gritty aspect. That is Bloodhaven, and that is the Nightwing comic. Like I said, Bloodhaven is an absolute shithole. It is like the ghettos. It is like the Holocaust, like concentration camp bad. And I mean that. Like, Gotham is pretty bad. Bloodhaven is pretty much worse. I mean, as bad as Gotham is, Bloodhaven is that much worse. So it keeps that dark, gritty-like feel, which I like. In addition to that, the stories are pretty sound in this. Although I feel as though the Scarecrow story was a little unnecessary, it was still kind of interesting. And the Man-Bat story was kind of short, but it was still fun for what it was. Especially the showing up of Deathstroke. Because Deathstroke is an enemy of the Titans, and I will always consider him an enemy of the Titans as a whole. But if out of any of the Titans, it's Dick Grayson, he tends to have a little bit more of a rivalry or a hatred towards. Not as much as it would be in the Teen Titans show, but still, he tends to dislike Dick Grayson the most. But not as, like I said, not as much as in the TV show. But it was nice to see Deathstroke show up. He's one of my favorite comic book villains. He is an absolute badass. In the art may not be the most realistic art, but it's great art. And one thing I can say about the art is the art really showcases the athleticism and the ability of Nightwing. How the art depicts how Nightwing fights, moves, and does stuff is absolutely beautiful. It really, really, really is well done. And it's a great art that really sets the tone for the comic. Downside. Well, the one big downside for me is really the relationship between Batman and Nightwing. While it was resolved very nicely, I felt as though it took too long. At one point in the story, Nightwing kind of bitches at Batman saying that this is my town, I got handle over things, you can leave. And Batman, surprisingly, respectfully says, I'm sorry, if I insulted you, I will leave. Which was kind of a shock to me. And Nightwing felt bad about himself for saying that because, really Batman wasn't there to judge him. He was just there to help. If they ended the thing there, it would have been kind of cool. However, they brought Batman back just right away. And although it was handled pretty well, I felt as though they spent too long on it. Now, this may be just a personal complaint from me, or maybe just be a complaint in general to the story. But that's something that I think they should have handled a bit better. But despite that, I still think this is a great story. This is a great continuation to the Night in Bloodhaven story, and I recommend picking this up with A Night in Bloodhaven, because they go hand in hand very well. That's what I did. I picked it up along with A Night in Bloodhaven. Now, the only problem with this is the price. Rough Justice is probably the most expensive out of all the Nightwing stories. Online, I've seen it go for $47 and higher. I got mine in my comic store, so I lucked out. I paid the cover price of what? $17. I mean, that's still a lot, but you're getting a lot for what it is. The other rare Nightwing stories is Year One and Hunt for Oracle, and I can get my hands on Year One. Hunt for Oracle is going to be a little bit harder, but that's just the thing. That's probably one of the other downsides is picking this up. It's going to be a hard time getting your hands on. Same thing with the Knight in Bloodhaven. That tends to be hard to find too. It's a little bit cheaper online, but it's still more than probably you would want to pay. So if you're going to get Rough Justice, I recommend getting it with Knight in Bloodhaven. Not only because you would get lost if you read it without Knight in Bloodhaven, but also because it's such a great complement to a Knight in Bloodhaven. It really works so well with it. But Rough Justice, great story. I thoroughly enjoyed it. A few minor problems with it, but still, really is still keeping me excited with the Nightwing comic series. I just got Love and Bullets, and I'm going to be reading that next, and a review of that will be coming soon. Like I said, I'm going to be going through the whole entire Nightwing series, with maybe the exception of Hunt for Oracle. I can't get my hands on that, so that might be skipped. But with that said, I'm going to end the review here. Rough Justice, great story, great continuation. I recommend get it if you can get your hands on it. If you cannot get your hands on it in comic book stores, I wouldn't stress over it. I would, although I think what they're doing in this really does set up the later Nightwing stories. I wouldn't stress over it because, I mean, it's not worth paying that much money for, but still it is a good story. Pick it up. This is Andrew saying peace out for now.